The door to hell, the Darvaza gas crater in Turkmenistan. In the Karakum Desert of Turkmenistan is a fiery pit that's become one of the country's most unusual landmarks. It's known as the Darvaza gas crater, or more commonly, the door to hell. It's a large open crater where flames have been burning continuously since the early 1970s. And unlike ancient coal seam fires or natural gas seeps, this place was started by humans. In 1971, Soviet geologists were drilling in the desert in search of natural gas deposits, and during the operation, the ground beneath the drilling rig collapsed, created a large sinkhole about 70 meters wide. This collapse exposed a natural gas pocket which began leaking methane into the atmosphere. Fearing that the gas could spread and pose risks to nearby communities and wildlife, the geologists decided to ignite it, expecting it would burn off in a few weeks. Instead, the fire never went out. The flames in there range from these small little flickers around the edges to large roaring jets in the center, producing intense heat and a steady orange glow that can be seen for kilometers across the desert at night. Scientists have studied to understand why the fire continues to burn. The most likely explanation is that the underground reserve of natural gas is way larger than originally believed. The porous sandstone and limestone layers here allow the gas to seep out continuously into the crater, which keeps the flames alive. In recent years, Turkmenistan's government has debated closing the crater, citing concerns over environmental impact and gas waste. However, attempts to extinguish the fire have not been carried out, partly because of the technical difficulty and partly because the site has become a symbol of the country. What began as an effort to control a gas leak has turned into a decades-long blaze that shows no sign of stopping. Number 14. The Eternal Flame Falls, Orchard Park, New York. In a wooded area south of Buffalo in New York, a small little waterfall hides an unusual natural feature, a flame that burns from within a rock alcove behind the falling water. It's known as the Eternal Flame Falls. It combines a geological gas seep with a natural cascade, which creates one of the few places in the world where visitors can see fire and water coexisting in the same spot. The flame is fueled by natural gas that seeps up through cracks in the shale, and as the gas escapes, it collects in a small, sheltered pocket at the base of the waterfall where it can be lit and sustained. The flame's not large, typically less than a foot high, but its location behind the flowing water makes it look awesome. If extinguished, usually by a strong gust of wind or a water splash, it can easily be relit with a match or a lighter, as the gas seepage is continuous. For many years, the exact source of the gas, though, was debated. In 2013, a team of scientists studied the site and concluded that the gas likely comes from organic-rich shale formations located deeper. Unlike some gas seeps that require high heat from deep geological process, this seep appears to release methane at relatively low temperatures, making it geochemically unusual. But the Eternal Flame Falls is located within Chestnut Ridge Park. It's become a popular hiking destination. The flame is visible for most of the year, though its size can vary depending on the gas pressure and water flow. Unlike larger burning sites like Darvaza, the Eternal Flame Falls represents a small-scale example. Scientists continue to study these kinds of seeps to learn more about methane emissions, and the site shows how even a modest feature can capture the public imagination. Number 13. Baba Gurgur, the Eternal Fire of Iraq. Near the city of Kirkuk in northern Iraq lies Baba Gurgur. It's one of the most famous natural gas seeps in the Middle East. Its name roughly translates to Father of Flames, and it's a fitting title for where fire is burned from the ground for as long as people can remember. Unlike coal seam fires, this one's fueled by natural gas that seeps up through cracks. Now, historical records suggest that the flames were already well known in antiquity. Ancient Greek historians reference the burning land in Mesopotamia, and local oral traditions pass down stories of ever-burning fire. These flames were considered sacred in Zoroastrianism, this fire-worshipping religion that flourished in the Persian Empire. Worshippers saw flames as a visible connection to the divine. But Baba Gurgur is not just a cultural landmark, it's part of the region's deep petroleum history. In 1927, the nearby oil field was the site of one of the largest oil discoveries of the 20th century. When the well struck crude, it produced such an enormous gusher that oil spilled uncontrolled for days. This event drew global attention to Iraq's petroleum resources, which would later play a central role in the country's economy. Though modern drilling has altered some of the natural seepage in the region, Baba Gurgur remains active and continues to burn as it has for centuries. For geologists, the site provides a bit of a window into how petroleum and gas deposits will naturally escape to the surface. Still though, it holds a special place in the story of natural fire phenomena. It connects the ancient world, where fire symbolized divine presence, with the modern era, where it became a symbol of oil, wealth, and energy. Few places embody that long of an arc of history quite like the eternal flames of Kirkuk. Number 12. Jawala-ji Temple, Himachal Pradesh in India. In the foothills of the Himalayas in Himachal Pradesh in India, there's a temple unlike any other in the country. It's known as the Jawala-ji Temple, or Temple of the Flame Goddess. It is a Hindu pilgrimage site where natural flames burn directly from the rock. Unlike lamps or torches that need to be lit, these flames emerge spontaneously and have been burning for centuries without interruption. Of course, they're fueled by natural gas seepage. Methane and other gases rise up through fissures in the bedrock and ignite when exposed to the air. The temple is dedicated to Jawala-ji, a Hindu goddess associated with fire and power. According to Hindu tradition, this is one of the 51 Shakti Pitas, the sacred sites linked to the goddess Sati. Legends tell that when Sati's body was dismembered, her tongue fell at the site of Jawala-ji, and the eternal flames rose as a symbol of her divine presence. The temple itself has a pretty long history too. References to it appear in texts from the Gupta period more than 1500 years ago, and it's been visited by emperors and rulers throughout India's history. The Mughal emperor Akbar is said to have tested the flames by attempting to cover them with a golden canopy, and according to legend, the flames burned through, proving their divine nature, and Akbar was humbled by the miracle. Scientifically, the flames are the result of low-level natural gas seepage. Geologists have studied the site and note that the steady flow of methane through the small cracks allows the fire to burn continuously without exhausting the supply. For visitors unfamiliar with Hindu traditions, the temple is a pretty cool example of how natural phenomena can take on religious meaning. The flames that flicker there quietly in the small alcoves are not large or dramatic, but they're considered eternal, and their survival over centuries has reinforced their sacred status. Where some eternal flames are treated as curiosities or tourist attractions, here the fire is worshipped as a goddess, and its presence has shaped centuries of belief and ritual. It is one of the clearest examples of how natural fire can be woven into human culture. Number 11. Mount Wingan, the burning mountain in Australia. In the Hunter Valley region of New South Wales, Australia, is a ridge that's been quietly burning for thousands of years. It's known locally as the Burning Mountain. Mount Wingan is home to the world's oldest known coal seam fire. This underground blaze is thought to have been alight for at least the last 6,000 years, slowly moving southward beneath the surface at a pace of around 1 meter per year. The fire is fueled by a seam of coal that extends deep into the earth. Once coal is exposed to oxygen, either through natural cracks or surface erosion, it can ignite and smolder for long periods. Unlike an open flame, most of the fire here at Wingan cannot be seen directly. Instead, it reveals itself through patches of scorched ground, smoke seeping from fissures, and the smell of sulfur in the air. In some cases, the soil is too hot to touch and vegetation struggles to survive here. For Indigenous Australians, the mountain has cultural significance too. Their oral traditions tell of a spirit who set the mountain alight, explaining the ever-present smoke and heat. European settlers first documented the site in 1828, initially mistaking the smoke for volcanic activity, before learning it was from a coal seam fire. Today, people can follow a walking track leading to viewpoints where the effects of the fire are visible. Although attempts have been made in other parts of the world to extinguish underground coal fires, the burning mountain has been left largely alone to continue. Containment is considered unfeasible, as the fire is expected to burn for many more thousands of years. The site is a reminder of slow but powerful forces at work beneath our feet. It's not considered a direct danger to surrounding towns, but it does serve as a real-world example of how difficult it is to control underground fires once they take hold. While most people associate fires with quick, destructive events, this Australian landmark shows that it can also be a geological process that unfolds on a timescale way beyond human lifespans. Number 10. Yanar Dagh, the burning mountain of Azerbaijan. On the Absheron Peninsula near Baku in Azerbaijan, fire quite literally seeps from the earth. Yanar Dagh, which translates to burning mountain, is a natural hillside where flames continuously burn. Unlike an underground coal fire, the flames here are caused by natural gas. The phenomenon has been present for centuries, but it became especially famous in the 13th century when a Venetian traveler, Marco Polo, described the many flames he saw across the region. Historically, natural gas seeps were common on the Absheron Peninsula, with fires breaking out spontaneously in several locations. Over time, of course, most have been extinguished, either through human intervention or as gas reserves are depleted, but Yanar Dog remains active. The visible flames rise from a 10-meter-long section of hillside, and they can reach up to 3 meters in height. They burn day and night, unaffected by rain or snow. The fire is steady rather than explosive, producing a constant glowing wall of flames that's made it a notable landmark. Before the rise of Islam in the region, the fire held a special importance in Zoroastrianism, a religion that originated in ancient Persia and had followers in this area. It's believed that a natural gas fire like Yanar Dog contributed to the image of Azerbaijan as the land of fire, a name that still appears in tourism campaigns. But in modern times, Yanar Dog has been protected as part of a state historical, cultural, and nature reserve. A visitor center here and a museum provide some awesome information about the background of the site and its cultural connections, and while there are other burning gas seeps in Azerbaijan, this one's the most reliable and visually striking. Unlike the coal seam fire at Mount Wingen, Yanar Dog's flames are right on the surface, making it an awesome example of how Earth's hidden resources can emerge from the planet in unexpected and fiery ways. Number 9. Mount Chimera of Mount Chimgan, Uzbekistan's burning ground. In the mountains of eastern Uzbekistan, near the resort town of Chimgan, lies a lesser-known site where natural fire emerges. Locally called the Burning Ground near Mount Chimgan, this phenomenon is the result of natural gas seeping through cracks in the earth. While it is smaller in scale than famous sites like Yanar Dog, it still is an important regional example of how this kind of process can create continuous flames without humans. Reports from geologists and travelers describe the flames emerging from rocky patches of soil, particularly during cooler evenings when the fire is most visible. The fire isn't concentrated in a single vent, but it's scattered across an area where gas seeps through the fractured sedimentary layers. These underground reservoirs of gas feed the small, steady fires that continue to burn year after year. Now, the site is not widely promoted for tourism, but locals are aware of it and sometimes guide the visitors to burning patches. Because the flames are relatively small, they pose little danger, though the surrounding soil can be hot to the touch and vegetation is sparse. Mount Chimgan itself is better known as a recreational area with hiking, skiing, and paragliding, which draws visitors from Uzbekistan's capital, Tashkent. Scientists who have studied the site note that these kind of phenomena are pretty valuable for understanding the natural methane emissions, which do play a role in our global climate. While the total output is small compared to industrial sources, natural seepages like these at Chimgan are part of the Earth's natural carbon cycle. Though not as visually dramatic as the Darvaza gas crater, or as historically significant as Baba Gurgur in Iraq, the Mount Chimgan fires highlight the widespread nature of this underground gas seepage across Central Asia. Number 8. Jaharia coalfield fires in Jharkhand, India. In eastern India's Jharkhand state, the ground itself has been burning for more than a century. The Jaharia coal field, one of the largest in India, is also one of the world's most notorious sites for uncontrolled underground coal fires. Here, fire comes out of the ground in forms of smoldering seams, vents, and spewing smoke, and open pits where flames are visible. Unlike natural seep fires, this blaze began largely due to people and their mining activity. The coal field has been mined since the late 18th century, and in 1916 a fire was reported in one of the seams. And since then, dozens of separate fires have broken out, many of which have merged into a huge connected network of burning coal. Once ignited, these coal seams can burn pretty much indefinitely, provided oxygen reaches them through fractures or mining shafts. Today, this coal field covers more than 400 square kilometers, with active fires across huge sections. In some places, the ground temperature is so high that railway tracks and roads have buckled. Entire villages have to be relocated because of subsidence, and toxic gases released from the burning coal cause people to move away. For local residents, the fires aren't just an oddity, it's a daily hazard. Scientists estimate that these fires could continue for decades, if not centuries, unless drastic interventions are undertaken. Similar coalfield fires exist elsewhere in the world, like the Centralia in the United States and Wingen in Australia, but Jaharia is among the largest in both scale and impact. For India, the site represents a resource and a challenge. It provides essential fuel for industry, but it also destroys usable coal and pollutes the air. The visible flames and smoldering ground are examples of how human activity can trigger processes that become almost impossible to reverse. They're not simple curiosities. They're part of a complex intersection of geology, industry, and human settlement. Fire coming out of the ground here is not a tourist attraction, but it's a reminder of the cost of poorly managed resource extraction. Moving on to number 7, the Centralia mine fire in Pennsylvania. In the small town of Centralia, Pennsylvania, fire has been burning underground since 1962. The Centralia mine fire began when workers set a pile of trash ablaze in an abandoned strip mining pit. The fire accidentally ignited a seam of anthracite coal, which spread through a network of abandoned mine tunnels beneath the town. More than 60 years later, the fire is still burning. Coal seams, of course, are notoriously difficult to extinguish once they start. The coal acts as basically a nearly endless fuel source, while oxygen will enter through the cracks in old mine shafts. In Centralia, repeated attempts to dig out or flood the fire failed, and the underground blaze slowly expanded beneath homes, streets, and businesses. By the late 70s, residents began to notice smoke venting from the ground and toxic gases seeping into basements. The most dramatic incident happened in 1981 when a 12-year-old boy nearly fell into a sinkhole that opened up suddenly in his backyard. The hole was 150 feet deep and filled with smoke and carbon monoxide. This incident, along with growing health concerns, led to the decision to relocate most of the town's population. Through a federally funded program, nearly all the residents were relocated in the 1980s and 90s, leaving behind empty streets and abandoned buildings. Today, only a handful of residents remain, and much of the town has been officially dissolved. The fire itself still burns underground, though the visible effects are limited. Some vents still release smoke, especially during colder months when the contrast is visible. But Centralia continues to draw visitors curious to see the ghost town and its connection to one of the world's most infamous mine fires. This place serves as a cautionary tale of how quickly these underground fires can spread beyond control. While scientists believe the fire could continue for another century or more, Centralia's story is already complete. A town erased by fire from beneath its own streets. Number 6. The Yan'an gas seep fires in Shanxi province in China. Near the city of Yan'an, natural gas has seeped out from the ground for centuries, creating places where fire emerges naturally and continuously. These seep flames, sometimes called the eternal fires of Yan'an, are part of the region's long history with hydrocarbons. Local records suggest that residents were aware of the phenomenon as far back as the Han Dynasty, that's more than 2,000 years ago. Once ignited either naturally through lightning or by human activity, these flames can persist as long as the gas continues to flow. And unlike the massive fires in places like Jahaira or Centralia, the Yan'an fires are smaller in scale and they often appear as glowing flames in rocky outcrops. Locals are reported to have used them for cooking or lighting in the earlier centuries, and they became associated with legends about divine fire. These flames contributed to the Yan'an's reputation as a place of unusual natural phenomenon, and in some cases, travelers described hillsides where smoke and fire seemed to emerge spontaneously. These fires are generally stable, but their intensity can change with fluctuations in the underground pressure. But in the modern era, much of the gas that once fed these natural flames is now extracted for energy. As a result, some of these traditional seep fires have diminished or disappeared. However, reports indicate that smaller flames still exist, visible especially at night or in colder weather. The city here is remembered for politics more than geology, and the nearby natural flames remain a quiet reminder of how the Earth's resources will reveal themselves. They demonstrate how fire from the ground has not only shaped myth, but also provided daily utilities centuries before industrial extraction of natural gas began. Number 5. Smoking Hills, the Northwest Territories in Canada. On the coastline of Canada's Northwest Territories, fire has been smoldering from the ground for centuries in a place known as the Smoking Hills. Located along the Beaufort Sea, this area is famous for its hillsides that emit smoke, steam, and the occasional flame without any human involvement. The source of the fire here is not natural gas, but instead oil shales. That's sedimentary rock which is rich in organic matter. Once ignited, these materials can burn for decades or even centuries, slowly consuming the fuel contained within the rock layers. European explorers first recorded the site in 1826 when British naval officer John Franklin passed along the Arctic coast and described the hills that appeared to be on fire. They weren't continuous flames like those at Yanardog or Chimera of Turkey, but instead slow-burning reactions that produced steady smoke and heat. The rocks exposed to the heat turn bright shades of red and yellow due to the chemical reactions in the minerals, and it gives the hills a scorched, almost alien appearance. And the air is often filled with the smell of sulfur, and the ground can be dangerously hot in certain spots. And because of these conditions, the vegetation struggles to grow directly on these burning hillsides. The fires are self-sustaining, they require no external ignition once they start, and unlike coal seam fires, which are common in industrial regions, the smoking hills represent a purely natural process that has continued for centuries without people. Despite their remoteness, the smoking hills have drawn interest from researchers and travelers. Cruise ships that navigate the Arctic coast sometimes pass near the site and allow passengers to see the smoke rising from the cliffs. This whole area stands out as one of the few places in the Arctic where fire is not just possible, but it's constant. In a region defined by ice and snow, these burning cliffs remind us that even in the coldest landscapes, combustion can persist. Number 4. Mount Etna, Eternal Flames of Sicily. Mount Etna, Europe's most active volcano, is best known for its eruptions of lava and ash, but in addition to its volcanic activity, the mountain has areas where fire seems to come directly out of the ground, even outside of eruption periods. It's located on the eastern coast of Sicily in Italy. Etna has been active for at least 500,000 years, and it's one of the most closely monitored volcanoes in the world. In certain areas on the slopes of the volcano, vents and fissures release gases that can ignite naturally, producing small but continuous flames. These flames are fueled by methane and other hydrocarbons trapped in the soil and released by the intense activity beneath the volcano. Now, unlike the spectacular lava fountains that Etna is famous for, these small surface fires are less dramatic but equally fascinating. Records going back to ancient Greece mention flames and glowing ground on Etna, and Greek mythology associated the mountain with Hephaestus, the god of fire and blacksmithing, whose forge was believed to be located under the volcano. But today, scientists monitoring the volcano continue to observe these flames, which often appear in areas where gas concentration is high. The flames are typically blue, that's a sign of methane combustion, and they're visible especially at night. They differ from Etna's eruptions in that they don't involve molten rock but rather chemical reactions. Because Etna is so active, with the eruptions happening multiple times each year, the small surface fires are often overlooked in favor of the more dramatic events. Still though, they contribute to the mountain's reputation as a place where fire seems inseparable from the land. They are generally harmless compared to lava flows, but they show the variety of ways in which heat and gas escape from one of the world's most complex systems. Visitors often climb the slopes or take guided tours to witness the volcanic craters, the lava flows, and the vents, and while the surface flames aren't always easy to find, their existence adds another layer of the story to a mountain, whereas Earth's interior energy is constantly revealing itself. Etna shows that fire coming out of the ground is not only a matter of natural gas seeps or coal seams. It makes Sicily home to one of the most varied and enduring examples of natural fire on the planet. Number 3. The doorstep of Vulcan, the sulfur fires of Kawah Ijen in Indonesia. On the Indonesian island of Java lies one of the most remarkable volcanic systems on Earth, a place where fire, gas, and minerals combine in ways almost unmatched anywhere else. This is Kawah Ijen, part of the Ijen volcanic complex. It's world famous for its turquoise crater lake and its sulfur mining, but equally compelling are the ground fires and flames that burn with an otherworldly blue glow. The main feature is a massive caldera, about 20 kilometers wide, created by a colossal eruption thousands of years ago. The lake here is nearly 1 kilometer wide and it's filled with hydrochloric and sulfuric acids. It's got a vivid turquoise color due to the dissolved minerals. The phenomenon of the blue fire here happens when high concentrations of sulfuric gases emerge from the fumaroles at temperatures that can reach about 1100 degrees Fahrenheit. When these gases encounter oxygen in the atmosphere, they ignite. Because the combustion of sulfur, rather than hydrocarbons, the flames burn with an intense blue color, especially visible at night. Unlike coal seam fires that may smolder for centuries, or natural gas seeps that produce steady yellow flames, the blue fires here are dynamic. Their intensity varies on the volcanic activity and gas pressure. On some nights, entire sections of the crater walls appear to be streaked with blue fire, while on others the flames are smaller and more concentrated. Tourists began to visit here in greater numbers in the late 20th century, drawn by the rare spectacle of blue fire. Guided hikes are common, with treks beginning around midnight to reach the crater before dawn when the flames are most visible. The sight of blue fire alongside the acidic lake and the backdrop of sulfur mining makes this place one of the most photographed and studied volcanic sites in Indonesia. It serves as a natural laboratory for studying the chemistry of sulfur combustion, something that's rarely visible at this scale. And unlike the smoking hills in Canada, where spontaneous combustion relies on minerals, Kawah Ijen demonstrates the high-temperature end of this spectrum, with flames hot enough to melt sulfur into liquid streams. In most of the world, when people encounter natural fire, it's orange or yellow, fueled by hydrocarbons. In East Java, however, it takes the form of blue fire born from burning sulfur, visible only in a handful of places on Earth. This makes it one of the most extraordinary examples of fire naturally emerging from the ground, a phenomenon that is as hazardous as it is captivating. Number 2. Baba Gurger's modern twin, the Yanartash of Iraq's Kurdish foothills. While Baba Gurger in Kirkuk is one of the most famous of Iraq's eternal flames, the greater region stretching across northern Iraq and southeastern Turkey contains multiple sites where fire comes out of the ground. Among these are a collection of smaller seep fires near the Kurdish foothills, less documented than Baba Gurger but significant as examples of how widespread this gas seepage is in this part of the world. We're going to focus on Baba Gurger's modern twin, the nearby gas seep fires that continue to burn in the Kurdish highlands and along the Zagros Fold Belt. The Zagros Mountains, stretching across Iran, Iraq, and Turkey, are among the most tectonically active regions. This is why Iran, Iraq, and the Caspian Basin are among the world's richest petroleum regions. In places where gas escapes to the surface, it can ignite and form continuous flames. Near villages, flames emerge from cracks and rocky hillsides, sometimes maintained for years by the steady seepage. Local people have historically used the natural fires for cooking or warmth, much like those at Yantaresh in Turkey, or the eternal flame falls in the United States. But unlike Baba Gurger, these sites are not widely publicized, but they provide valuable insight. Modern observers might dismiss the smaller seep flames as curiosities compared to larger sites like Darvaza or Kawah Ijen, yet they remain important because they're among the few natural eternal flames that continue to exist in areas with heavy petroleum extraction. It's believed that these natural seep flames contributed to the development of fire temples, places where worship was centered around the flames that never died. And even after the decline of Zoroastrianism, the cultural association of northern Mesopotamia and Persia with eternal flames continued, which shaped the region's identity as a land where fire comes naturally from the ground. In the context of human settlements, the flames of Iraq's Kurdish foothills illustrate the long history of people interacting with natural fire. Long before industrial oil wells transformed Iraq into a petroleum power, communities in the region already lived alongside eternal flames. These fires influenced their culture, provided practical benefits, and connected people to the unseen forces beneath their feet. They are visible reminders that Iraq's connection to fire and petroleum didn't begin in the 20th century with oil discoveries, but it stretches back to antiquity, when flames on the ground shaped their religion, the myth, and daily life. Number 1. The Eternal Fire of Ateshka, the Fire Temple of Baku. On the Absheron Peninsula near Baku, Azerbaijan, there's a temple, unlike any other in the world, built not to honor a god who resided in the heavens or deep within the earth, but to venerate the flames that rose directly from the ground. Known as the Ateshka, or House of Fire, this stone-walled complex was constructed around a natural gas seep that once produced flames burning day and night without any person intervening. For centuries, travelers arriving from Persia, India, and beyond described this place with astonishment, marveling at the fire that required no wood or fuel, only the earth itself. The peninsula itself has been known for thousands of years as a land of fire. It sits on part of the Caspian Basin, which is one of the world's richest petroleum regions. But when the gas emerges at the surface, it ignites easily here, either spontaneously or through lightning strikes or human activity. But for ancient inhabitants of this region, seeing flames flickering from the barren soil must have appeared miraculous. Ancient Greek writers referred to the burning lands in this part of the Caucasus, and by the time of Marco Polo's travel in the 13th century, the flames of Absheron were already well known to outsiders. He wrote of fires that burned without fuel, proof to him of the strange and wondrous forces of the East. The construction of that current temple complex began in the 17th century, built in a pentagonal shape with thick stone walls. In the middle of this courtyard, directly over the main gas vent, rose a domed altar that housed the largest eternal flame. From this altar, the gas seeped out of the ground, producing a fire that blazed continuously. It was the heart of the sacred complex. Around the courtyard, cells and chambers were built into the walls, and these served as quarters for pilgrims, ascetics, and monks who came to live in the presence of the eternal flame. The walls of the Ateshka are inscribed with prayers and dedications in multiple languages. In Persian, there are references to fire worship. In Sanskrit and Hindi, there are invocations of Hindu deities and dedications made by merchants and pilgrims. For them, the flames of Ateshka were seen as manifestations of Agni, the Hindu god of fire, or as a symbol of Jwalaji, a goddess associated with eternal flames. Sikhs, too, recognized the fire as sacred, and inscriptions confirmed that they participated in religious life of the temple. The mingling of Zoroastrianism, Hindu, and Sikh traditions created an unusual environment where fire became the common language of devotion. Life at the temples was austere. Pilgrims lived in small stone cells, often in difficult conditions, exposed to the climate, and food supplies were minimal, and daily life centered on tending to the flames and performing rituals. For centuries, it burned without interruption as the natural gas seeped steadily. But as the 19th century progressed, the flames began to weaken. This reason was not spiritual but industrial. Baku had become one of the earliest centers of petroleum production. Wells were drilled and gas and oil were extracted, and pipelines began carrying hydrocarbons away from the natural seeps. As the underground pressure changed, the seepage that had sustained Ateshka for centuries diminished. By the late 19th century, the great eternal flames were flickering out. By the early 20th century, they were gone entirely, extinguished by the very industrial development that had made Baku famous as a modern city of oil. Today, Ateshka is one of Azerbaijan's most visited historical sites. Tourists come from around the world to see the place where fire once emerged naturally from the ground and was worshipped as divine. From a scientific perspective, the Ateshka shows how natural gas seepage can sustain continuous fire. Without industrial drilling, the seepage was steady enough to maintain flames indefinitely in this case. And in this sense, Ateshka was an unintentional gauge of the natural petroleum dynamics of the Absheron Peninsula. Its decline mirrored the redirection of hydrocarbons into industrial use. But the legacy of Ateshka extends far beyond the walls. It does represent the ways which natural phenomena shape human belief and culture. Although the eternal flames are no longer eternal, the symbolism of Ateshka endures. It remains one of the most extraordinary examples of a place where fire comes out of the ground, not because the flames are large or dramatic today, but because they burned long enough and brightly enough to shape centuries of human history.